Hi, welcome to day 11. Today we are going to talk about typography and colors. All this while we will actually looking at various arrangement of the tags by the CSS in the browser. So we've seen the different ways of the browser, the different ways in which the browser lays down all our tags. So either inline, block, and the various displays and positioning, how we can affect all these things. But one particular thing we haven't touched yet, which is very important, is the text. So it is almost impossible to have a document or to have a website without text. So text is very important, and we should also be able to actually touch it. We should be able to do something about the beauty of the text. So if you look at this site right now, you can see that there's a different arrangement, different sizes, and some kind of retouch on the text that makes it comfortable to read. So that's what we call typography. So typography is the art in which we care about the beauty of the text. We care about the arrangement of the text, the letters, and so on that makes up a text in order to convey a comfortable message or probably a less comfortable message depending on the goals. So today we would like to look at how person can achieve the retouches of the text using HTML and CSS. So I have a folder created day 11 in our last course folder, and I also have a file inside index.html. So I'm going to edit this file using my text editor. Already have it open. So what we are going to do is to start by getting some text by default. So I'll create some heading here, some header here. Inside that header, I'll add some heading 1 and say typography is fun. So right under it, I'll add one paragraph, and I'll just enter some lorem ipsum text, which is a dummy text. Right, so I have one dummy text in one paragraph. I'll add another paragraph which will also contain another dummy text. So if I go and preview, I should have this. So I will add some CSS just to help us give a context to this text. So what I'm going to do is just to put it in a div, and then I'll shrink the div. I'll reduce the width of the div and get it centered so that we can be able to focus on the text aspect of it. So we'll go in our head tag and we'll insert the star tag, and then in here I will target the header tag directly, and then I will set the width to, let's say, 50% of the screen, or let me make it 70% of the screen. Then I will also try to align it margin top and bottom, let's say 3% top and bottom, and then left and right automatically adjusted. Then I will also set a border so that I can see the box. So border is going to be 1 pixel, and then it's going to be dotted, and then I will set the color to gray, and I will also set some padding to 20 pixels so that the text will have some space to breathe. So this is one of the first things you also have to look at when it comes to typography. Your text is about giving it space, making it breathe. So we have to look at some of these characteristics when it comes to text that we need to look at whenever we're building a website. We need to cross-check these things and be sure, okay, or have we actually taken care of our text as we are supposed to? Have we actually taken care of every single aspect of our text? Did we check, for example, the alignments? Did we check the heights? Did we check the line heights? Sorry. Did we check the sizes and so on? So these are the things I want us to explore here using CSS. So except my typography has a typo inside. So typography. So what can we do in the first place? The first thing we think we can do is to actually affect the size of the text. So here we have two categories of text, the heading and then the paragraph. Looking at the heading, it's not that bad, but I could also decide to increase the size. So I can go to the heading one, and then to increase the size of the text, we use the CSS property font size, and then you set a unit. So let it be, let's say 20 or 30 pixels. So let me make it 17 pixels, for example. You see, it shrinks the text, although that this text is a heading, but it still looks smaller. But for the browser, it's still a heading. So let me make it 50 something, for example. And it goes bigger than what the heading by default is. So this is another proof that you can also affect the headings and give them bigger sizes as if you wish. So that's one way. So we can affect the size. So the next thing we can do, we'll go and affect something on the paragraphs. So let's also change the size there. We are using font size, and this one I'm going to make it 18 pixels. And you can see the text increases. Now let me show you something. Let's assume I make this text size let's say 28 pixels. So you can see something happens as soon as I increase the text size. So what happens is the spacing between the various lines becomes smaller. So let me indicate to you what I'm trying to say. The spacing between the lines, this spacing reduces as the text increases. So this space is called the line height. The line height. So that's the separation between the lines, right? That's the separation between the lines. So if we know that we've increased our text size, the bigger or the more, if you like, you can adjust the line height in a more appropriate way, your text becomes more comfortable to read. So to do that, we set the line height, which is here. So let's say we make it 10 pixels to see how it goes. You see, the lower the line height, the worse the text goes. So we can make this 40, and you can see. And at the same time, if you make the line height too much, the text becomes very difficult to read. So you must also adjust it to the right proportion to make the text more comfortable, depending on the size on which you are. Right? So that's one thing. So we've seen the text, the line height, the font size, and then there's another thing we also look at, which is the alignment of text. This is common, especially if you are using Microsoft Word. So let's set for the heading one, let's set the text alignment. So we use the text align property, and we have the possibility of using either start, that's the default, and just like in the flex, so you can use start, end, and left, right, justify, and so let's say we make it right, because by right now it is at the left side. So if we refresh our document, it moves the text at the right side. So if I change that into center, it will bring our caption at the center, and so on. So we have these properties, these values for this property text align, which allows us to verify, to kind of determine where the text will be. So in the case of this heading, it was obvious and simple because it is just one line and in short text. So now let's test that with the paragraph text align. Let's say we do justify. So you can see here automatically the text gets justified and all left and right, so the same dimension is respected. By default, the text will be aligned at the left side, so let me make it right, and you see it takes the text to the right side, and so we can also manipulate this. So we can also set it to center, and then it will center the text. So what we can do here, we'll keep it justified. It looks okay. Great. So also when you justify the text, you can see that the spacing between the words can also be affected. So it will depend on the text you are having. From time to time, you might see that justified text might make sense, or depending on the goal you are trying to achieve, or some other cases, justify won't make any sense at all. So you have to verify all these things. So we also have what we call the vertical alignment. So let's assume I have typography here, this heading here. So I do typography is fine, and then let's say I add something like love it. So this love it, I'll put it in a span, or let's say, yes, let me put it an EM tag to emphasize on it. Then I'll close the EM. So this EM being in the heading, so it should actually show something like this, except we have some mistake. Yes. So this love it will actually be emphasized, but it's still a heading one text. So let's assume I target that text, this EM, and then I set the vertical align to, let's say, super. So you see, it takes it as a subset, superset, right? As a superset. So the same way I have sub, which is subset. So you see sometimes on Wikipedia, they write a text and then there's this small character, like number one, a reference that is at the bottom or somewhere on top of the word. So these are the things you can use to make that happen. So you can decide to change the alignment into various cases. So in our case, let's use super. So you can also check the various properties when it comes to vertical alignment. So we can't go far without thinking of something very crucial when it comes to formatting text. And if you use Microsoft Word before, you could know it, which is transforming a text from small letters to capital letters, or capitalizing the first letters and so on. That's what we call the text transformation. So let's assume we go back to our heading and we decide to do text transform. So we use text transform for that. Text transform. So we can decide to choose either uppercase, then it will change the whole heading one into uppercase. And you can see that. We can decide to make it completely lowercase if we had written, not lowercase, lowercase, and it will transform everything into lowercase. So if you want the first letters to start with capital letters, we capitalize it. We are saying capitalize. So you can see typography starts with capital T, is with capital I, fan with capital F, and so on. So this is a cool thing. So there's also another thing we usually see in some writing styles, where the paragraphs are not separated by this white space, but rather they are distinguished by an indentation here. So the first sentence is indented to show that this is the beginning of the paragraph. So if I collapse the margins of the paragraphs, for example, to get them close to each other, so that's how these people do. And then they will now use what we call the text indentation. So you do text indent, and then the text indent, let's assume we say it should indent at 20 pixels, right? So you see it starts pushing the text. So if I increase it to, let's say, 70, you can see it indents the first sentence. So this is what some people use to distinguish the paragraphs. You can see this kind of writing. So in our case, we'll keep the border, we'll keep the margin, and then still indent the text so that we can see what it is. And you can see how not cool it is with the justified text. If I change this into left, for example, you see that it will look better. Yes. Okay. What did I use? Yes, left. So kind of, if I am to admit that it is better for me, but maybe not for you. Anyway, so let's keep it justified. So the next thing we usually see when it comes to text is to have the occasion of underlining a portion of the text. So let's assume we have this text. We can decide to underline a part of the text like this, or sometimes we can even strike through a word, or maybe sometimes we put some line on top of a portion, or a set of words, or a word, and so on. So it's also a cool thing used in formatting text, and that's called the text decoration. So let's see how we do that using CSS. So we'll take the heading tag, and now let's use the EM. So now we do text decoration, and the indent text decoration. So in the text decoration, you can decide to say you want it to be the decoration, the line to be underlined. So if you do underline, it will underline the love it. You see, if we don't want the line to be on top of the love it, we choose overline. If you refresh, you see the line goes up. This is getting fun. So we can also decide to make the line to cross the word by taking through, line through, and then it crosses it through. So we'll keep it, let's say, overline. I love that overline star there. Yeah, this makes it really cool. Love it. So now once we have this text decoration, we can also set some values to this text, this decoration of the text. So we can set, for example, the decoration color and the thickness, the star, and then the offset and so on. So let's try some of these properties. So text decoration color, and we can choose to make it, let's say, green. Our love is usually pink, so we choose to make it pink. And you see it becomes pink. So we can also choose to make it thick or slim, thick or thin. So that's text decoration thickness. Text decoration thickness. So we can decide to say it should be, let's say, some 3 pixels or 4 pixels. So it seems too small. Let me make it 14 and see. So you see it enlarges. So that even makes me have to think about having it underlined. So by having it underlined, we can see that makes it look cool. So we can also decide to the star. We can also apply a star to this line text decoration. So we say text decoration star. So here this goes the same thing as the line, the border stars, which are, let's say, solid, dashed, dotted, and so on. So we can use the same values here. By default it is solid, so if we make it double, for example, it will double the lines, and you can see it's really fatter. So if we choose, let's say, dashed, you see it brings the dashes. So we can change that to into dotted, and it changes into dotted. Lovely. So, or we can decide to make it wavy, and this is a style I really love personally. Interesting. So we have it wavy, and we have the thickness. So let's reduce the thickness to 7 and see, and you see it actually underlines it with this wavy form, this waveform line. So also the next thing we could also do is to decide of how far this underlining goes, or this alignment or decoration goes from the text. So we use the text underline offset. So if I choose, let's say, 20 pixels, you see how far it will go. So you see it pushes it 20 pixels away. So if I, let's say, I go with a negative number, so you see it actually tries to take it below the text, so you can affect all these things. So that's one case, but I would like to keep it simple 10 and see, good, somewhere there. So let me make it 7 rather, so it gets closer. Great. So this is one cool way of decorating your text. So the next thing we could think about is the text shadow. It happens that sometimes we want to have a shadow on a text and then give it make it look fun. So for that we actually use the text shadow property, and the text shadow property takes a color, let's say pink, and then some 3 values. So let's say we say 4 pixels, 4 pixels, and 2 pixels, and the last value is not it is optional. We can jump it and you can see what we get. So basically the first number actually sets like on the horizontal line, how are we going to shift the shadow on the horizontal line. The second one is on the vertical line, and then the third one is how far we can take it. So if I change it into 10, you can see that the shadow will actually spread more and become thinner, and like it looks thinner, it vanishes. So the less the number, the thicker the shadow is, and you can see here. So if I start increasing these numbers, the shadow will increase both in the y-axis and then the x-axis. So if you reload, you see it increases. So it's cool, we keep it at 4, and that makes it look cool. So this is the some of the basic things you have to be doing most often when you are building websites and manipulating your text and so on. So we can't end this by without remembering the basic thing, which is changing the color. So the color attribute, we've seen it right from the beginning. It can also be applied to the text. So here we can decide to give our text a color of a bit dark. So this looks too dark. So let me 6666. So it reduces the darkness of the text, and these are the things you can do often. So if you look at Lance course pages, mostly on the articles pages or the course pages, you can see that the same formatting is done to actually affect the text display. So let me remove the ads. So you can see here, for example, this text is not that black. You can also see the arrangement, the line heights, the spaces between the lines. Look at the spaces between the paragraphs as well. And you see how the headings are considered and so on. And the text that is supposed to be bold, it's not that dark, but it actually blends with the basic, the default color of the font. So, and a quotation in here to also quote some few things and so on. If you also go on the courses, when you are reading the courses, you can see that the text is also defined, formatted, following a certain standard. So the course description here, for example, look at how the course curriculum is also styled. And if you start reading, let's say, any text on it, you can see the same formatting is done to make it comfortable for you to read. And you can see same formatting is done. So it is very important to consider your text. It's very important to spend some time on formatting your text and giving it some beauty. So you can see various ways of formatting the text here and there. At the home page, you see the same thing. So these are examples you should look at to learn how to uh, create beautiful text. It's an art on its own that you have to learn. Some people have nice keen eyes in observing beautiful text, and right now they can tell you, oh, this text is not well done and you should do it this way. So you should also learn your case. So for example, right now I don't like how the text here is. So it is something you can actually acquire over time. So the next aspect of the text I would like us to consider, I will also mention before we continue, is what we call the fonts. It is an important topic, serious. It is an important topic. So the font is what? The font is actually the style in which the text is written. So some examples, if we take, let's say, let me go to my drawing board. So if you take a text which is written, let's say, like this, it's not the same as this text, right? It's not the same. It's the same word, but the writing style is not the same. It's not also the same as having this. It's not also the same. So you see, the style in which we write the text matters, and this styling is what we call the typefaces. So this is a typeface, this is a typeface, this is a typeface. So if it happens that these three typefaces are created by the same person, and it was named, let's say, the Ali typeface, the Ali typeface, or Ali TP or TF, the Ali TF. So the whole Ali TF is now what we call a font family. So this is a font family. It's a family, and each one of these ones is a face of the family. Just like in human beings, every single human in the family is a face of the as an individual face. So we have the font family and the font faces. So in CSS, CSS, because we have so many fonts that We cannot even tell. So CSS actually decided to group fonts in 5 different families, 5 main families in which every font must fall into. So it, at least whatever the font, it must fall into one of these families. So the first family is what we call the sans serif family. So this is a French word to say without serif. Sans means without serif. So sans serif family. So a sans serif family is a text that doesn't have the edges. So here you can see this text here has edge. This one doesn't add, this ones here don't have edge. So this is a serif. This edge you see on the letters like this, these small edges are called a serif. So sans serif means without serif. So obviously it means we might have a serif text. So when we say serif font family, so it is a family of fonts that have these edges. So we might have many fonts in under this category. I mean, we have many. So we have many here under the serif font. So the same thing goes. We have what we call monospace font, monospace space. So the monospace font is a group of fonts that give the same space to every letter of the text. So let's say the Ali, every single space designed for every letter is the same, is equal. So that's why we call them monospace fonts. So these fonts are usually used in our text editors font, if as software as text editors for software developers. So the font usually is monoface because it makes the text, the code look good. And so some example of the font here we can see is Consolas. So it's usually used in text editors by default. So the next font family we see is what we call the cursive. The cursive is an imitation of the human handwriting. So the fonts that are in this category where it is written, these fonts are grouped in the cursive family. Then the next one we have is the fantasy. So if any font does not fall into the first 4 categories, then it is a fantastic font. So we call that fantasy fonts. So in CSS, we consider these 4 aspects of the fonts. So how do we get to apply these fonts, this styling of writing to our text? So what we are going to do is we'll target, let's say, the paragraphs here. So in general, you might want to apply any font to your body tag so that the font is applied to every part of your web documents. So we use the font family to set the family we want for our text. So if you decide to say, okay, I want to use only sans serif fonts, sans serif. So by doing that, it means you are telling the computer to pick any font on the user's PC. So like the person visiting your website, so the browser will go and pick any sans serif font and just apply it to the documents. So the browser will actually pick it for you. You don't have to specify which particular font in the sans serif family. So you see, it has just picked any font for me. So we can decide to be specific to of the font we want. So let's say I want the Arial font, or let's say yes, Arial font, which is common. So and then I refresh. So it means here that by default my browser actually tried to use the Arial font for me. So now let me try to use another font which is in the sans serif family, which is called Verdana. So you see, it has changed. And now you can also perceive something that by changing the font family, it also changes the sizes of my text by default. So it is very important that we situate ourselves on what font family we are working with before we even go on in formatting our text. You can see that the font size I set here for my paragraphs is too much if I'm to use Verdana. So if I reduce to 17, sorry, that's on the heading. So I'll change this into, let's say, 18. Now it makes sense. And here too, you can see the alignment of the text is too spacious because of the size. So all this, you must always pay attention to what you are doing. So let's assume now I decide to use a monospace font. So I can go ahead and say monospace. So the browser will pick some monospace inside and then apply it for me. So if I want to specify any particular monospace font like consolas like this, so it means it was using consolas. So let's say I change this in Courier, so it changes, right? So all these fonts are very important in choosing in styling your document. It's very important that you think about the font before you even start breaking your website. So there is a lot to go about in fonts, especially this font now is what we call the web safe fonts. Web safe fonts. So let me add that web safe. So what it means is that these fonts I'm using here are actually from the device I'm using, from the computer. If I have these fonts installed on my PC, then my website can use them. So it also means that when you set such fonts on your website, somebody who might not have these fonts, the browser has to pick another font that will kind of fit into that, will end up giving your users different experiences. So sometimes we might want to keep the experience consistent from device to device, from browser to browser, from user's PC to user's PC. So we can use what we call the web fonts. So this is going to be another topic we are going to discuss deeper, but for now let me tell you, we have fonts. Google has a list of fonts. You can go and pick it, and it is called fonts.google.com. So from there you can go and pick the font you want and then use them. So here you can see a font called Roboto, a font family, another one called Noto, Sun, so and so on. So you have various fonts. So every time you are starting a new website or a new web page, it is important that you pick the font you want to use, and then from there you can get it. So let me show you a little bit. If I decide to use this font, Railways, so I'm going to click on it. Google will give me the various sizes. You can see the thing. So this is a face, this another face, this another face, and so on. So if I decide I could get this font, and then I'll say I want to embed it, you can download it and install it in your PC. But we want our website to carry it along everywhere, so that wherever people whenever people open our website or wherever they open it, they should see the same font. So Google gives us two ways of bringing the font into our website. Remember, I mentioned the import, which is another way of linking an HTML document to CSS. And we also have the link, which is the traditional way we've been doing so far. But to link to this font, Google is giving us three things to link. So the first link is going to preload the Google's font site. The second one is also going to preload the another website of Google, which is probably used by the font site, and then the actual font itself. So since we are used to this, let's try this one. Otherwise, if you click on import, it's going to be one line. This is the only line you need to pick. So we'll pick that and bring it in our header, like as usual here, somewhere here before the star area. So we bring the links here. So we indent. So it means we have actually carried various weights of this font from 0, 100, and so to up to 900 and so on. So we carry all. You can sort it if you want and pick the ones you want. Then they are telling us how we use it. So to use this font, you just do font family Rail, and you can see that the Railway is a sans serif type. So we can pick it. So we already have our body with sans serif. So we have to say Railways, yes, Railway. So we do it this way. So here you can see that there's an emphasis on the font. So by just using the quotes, it is all the same. So if we go back to our page and we reload, we can see that it will change the star. If I'm not wrong, let me be sure. Okay, so something happened because it actually has to go on Google server and fetch it. So there was this delay. So once it loads, and then that's all, the font is applied once for all. So that is it. So you see this delay on going on the site and picking it. But On a real website, you might see that it will be cached once the user starts visiting your website, and that will look great all the time. So this brings us to the end of this lesson. I hope you've learned something. If you did, please consider liking this video, subscribe to our channel, share the video with other people who might need this information, and stay around. Click on the notification bell for future videos. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy your text.